Wife Anna Walshe is set for today. Brian Walshe is expected to be given life without parole. That is the mandatory sentence for a first-degree murder conviction. Before his sentencing, the judge will allow victim impact statements to be read in court. We do want to note that Anna Walshe's body has never been found. It does look like sentencing is getting underway. Let's listen in.
And yes, for the Commonwealth.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. Tracy Cusick for the Commonwealth.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, everyone. Kelly Porges on behalf of Mr. Walshe.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Larry Cookman for Mr. Walshe.
Please be seated. All right, I have two motions up here, one from each of you, and I'll address those in a minute.
You are unmuted.
So let me start by, excuse me, taking a drink of water. Let me start by listing what the court has reviewed in preparation for this sentencing to make sure that everything you think that I have reviewed, I have in fact received and reviewed. So I've received the parties' sentencing memos. That comprises one sentencing memo submitted, I think, yesterday or the day before, late in the day before, from the Commonwealth. The defense has provided a sentencing memo along with a supplement that I received this morning. I think that was filed yesterday after the close of the business day. I also have received various victim impact statements in writing, to include victim impact statement on behalf of the three minor children from the Department of Children and Family Services, DCF. I've also received victim impact statements written from Melissa Kirby and from Peter and Pam Kirby. And I sought out and shared with the parties and have reviewed various sentencing commission information, as well as guideline calculation from probation, as well as Mr. Walsh's carry and triple I, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And I've now just received and will review, prior to deciding my sentence, a letter from Diana Walshe. As an initial matter, is there anything that the parties submitted that I didn't just now list that you expected me or want me to review before sentencing? Kamal first.
Your Honor, there will be a victim impact statement given by Anna's sister, Alexandra Dmitrievich, and she's prepared to give that to the court.
Okay, but as far as written materials, any other written materials that you are hoping me to review before I impose sentence?
No other written materials, and I just want to note that FTR is not on at this point in time, and I don't know if the court needs that on. I know we have a court reporter and we're in good hands, but sometimes we've been running both.
All right, I thank you for pointing that out. We do, when we have the court reporter, that is the primary method of memorializing the events, but always good to have a backup, and I see that Madam Clerk has put it on now. For the defense, are there any other written materials that you wish the court to review?
You have everything.
All right, let me just take a moment to review this letter. All right. Thank you. We'll start with the Commonwealth's presentation of whatever victim impact statements that you wish me to hear orally.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Commonwealth would ask Alexandra Dimitrovic to address the court. Would you like her at the witness stand or from the podium?
In the witness stand.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning. You may be seated.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, everyone. My name is Alexandra Dimitrievich, and I'm the sister of Anna Walshe. I am here today to represent myself and my mother. I want to share with the court how losing my sister in January 2023 has forever changed our lives and left us with an unbearable emptiness. Losing my sister Anna so unexpectedly has altered our world in ways we never imagined. Anna was not just my sister. She was someone I grew up with, someone who knew me in ways no one else ever will. I struggle with the grief that comes without warning, hoping every morning that this is all just a terrible dream. The most painful part of this loss is knowing her children must now grow up without their mother's hand to hold. They now face a lifetime of milestones, big and small, where her absence will be deeply and painfully felt. This tragedy has also devastated my mother. She has developed severe depression and chronic exhaustion. Every single day, she carries the weight of losing her daughter. Our entire family is still learning how to live with this emptiness. Holidays and birthdays are now silent reminders of her absence. Because of the circumstances of my sister's death, we were denied the opportunity to say a final goodbye and to observe our customs, adding a layer of profound, unfinished grief to our loss. Anna was a mother, a daughter, a sister, and a friend. Her life was unfairly taken. We miss her beyond words. While we recognize that no sentence can bring her back, we ask the court to consider the permanent, long-lasting impact this loss has had on our family, especially her children. We stand in agreement with the Commonwealth and their recommendations. Finally, I would like to extend our deepest gratitude to the investigators, the Commonwealth's office, and everyone who has worked tirelessly on this case. Your dedication to seeking justice for my sister has provided our family with a sense of support during our darkest hours. Your Honor, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share the full weight of this incomprehensible act. Anna will never be forgotten. We will carry her light and her memory with us forever. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Careful.
Yes. Sorry.
Your Honor, we have no other victim impact statements other than the ones that we've submitted in writing.
All right, thank you. All right. I have read the Commonwealth sentencing recommendation, the written recommendation, but I'll have you state it on the record.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Commonwealth is requesting that the defendant be sentenced to a series of consecutive sentences on the charges to run from and after his federal case in which he received a sentence of 37 months in February of 2024. The first charge that the Commonwealth would seek an incarceration component on is count 003, and that the defendant be sentenced to 2.5 to 3 years. The second charge would be that he, on the misleading 002, to run from and after 003, that he receive a sentence of 18 to 20 years. and that the third charge, the murder in the first degree, that the defendant be sentenced to life without the possibility of parole to run from and after 003 and 002. And Your Honor, if I may be heard in our argument.
Please.
Thank you, Your Honor. When you look at the facts of these three charges, each one calls for a harsh penalty. If you look at the illegal conveyance of a body, the defendant did not just, the person that he illegally conveyed was his wife and the mother of his three children. And he did it by removing her remains from the family home and placing them in buckets, in garbage bags, in dumpsters around the Commonwealth. He denied, as you just heard, her family the opportunity to have any customs or burial. There is no grave, there is no memorial. And he did this all in an effort to destroy evidence. On the misleading component, Your Honor, while we do mention the potential of probation, we put that in there only as data so that you understand the efforts that went in to trying to find Anna based on the defendant's series of lies. These lies were all done in an effort to cover up his crime and destroy evidence. We're also, while we put in that, we are not seeking a probation sentence, but we put it in there so the court, if it wanted to contemplate one, understood there was an option to do it that would prevent the defendant potentially from trying to profit from this.
So the only mechanism for me, I see it anyway, the only mechanism for me under the restrictions of state law,
Yes, Your Honor.
it's an either-or situation. That is, either I incarcerate him for an additional period of time, either concurrent or consecutive, or I put him on probation following the life sentence, or maybe it even starts today. But the only way that restitution can be achieved on count 2 is through a probationary sentence. So I don't think there's any other mechanism for me doing that. So I don't know how you achieve that goal if without a probationary sentence and mandating it as a condition of probation. And so I want the Commonwealth to be clear with me. You're making note of it in passing, but you are not asking me to put him on a probationary sentence. Is that correct?
We are not, Your Honor. It is data that you can use in order to determine the scope of his lies in which the police relied on them. And you can see the costs that went into investigating the disappearance of Anna Walshe, but we are not asking for probation on this matter.
And the same question with regard to the issue of restitution that I heard rumblings of yesterday.
Yes, Your Honor.
Same result?
Same result. It is, again, it's data for you in determining your sentence, but we are not asking for it.
All right. Just wanted to be clear on that.
Thank you, Your Honor. And then on the murder, again, this was the murder of his wife and the mother of his 3 children. And the cover-up of this murder, Your Honor, deserves some analysis. If you look at the first internet search, which occurred at approximately 4:52 a.m. on the 1st, how to dispose of a body, and how they evolve into eventually 11:24 a.m., how to dispose of body parts after a murder, it appears the defendant at this point in time is committed to getting rid of evidence of the crime. And it leads to the shopping sprees later on that night at Lowe's and CVS and Stop and Shop. However, if you look at the internet searches on the second, how to dismember a body, and is a hacksaw the best tool to dismember a body? It's a reasonable inference he hasn't started the action yet. And it results in the second shopping spree to Home Depot that afternoon, which means that Anna Walshe has been dead in that basement for over 24 hours. The same home his children are in, the same home the babysitter's at, the same home his mother has come to visit. And in the evening between the 2nd and the 3rd is when the dismemberment occurs, and on the 3rd we see him going to dumpsters, getting rid of the remains. In the defendant's sentencing memo, and I want to note The defendant was represented by two excellent lawyers who are titans in this industry, who I have the highest respect for. They say the Commonwealth's recommendation is inhumane. I suggest that that's not the appropriate word choice, because if we were to look at that word, I would suggest that that describes the defendant's actions and the depravity of his actions of murdering his wife, dismembering her, and getting rid of her remains by throwing her away like garbage. The question might become whether or not this is a cruel and unusual punishment that the Commonwealth is recommending. And I direct Your Honor to one case. It's Cepulonis, Cepulonis versus the Commonwealth, 384 Mass 495 at 497. It's a 1981 case. To reach the level of cruel and unusual punishment, the punishment must be so disproportionate to the crime that it shocks the conscience and offends the notion of human dignity. I don't know if that's possible in this case, Your Honor, because human dignity was completely offended by the defendant's actions and how he treated his wife, how he disposed of her, and how he robbed her family and friends of the opportunity to bury her. There is no death certificate. The church will not allow a funeral to go on at this point in time. We are working on trying to work with the ME's office to see if we can get a death certificate to issue now, based on the conviction and based on the plea. And when I looked behind me after the closing arguments, I realized that was the closest thing that those people had come to a wake, because they never got together to mourn her. And that happened 3 years later. So with that, Your Honor, the Commonwealth does make a punishment that we recommend to you. We recognize it's harsh, but we think it's appropriate based on the facts. And I appreciate your time, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll hear from the defense.
With respect to the first-degree murder conviction, although we made it clear from our memorandum that we do object to a life without parole sentence based on state and U.S. constitutional grounds based on the Eighth Amendment, we understand the court has no discretion. With respect to indictments 2 and 3, you do. I think inhumane is the right word, respectfully. To sentence someone to prison posthumously to send a message is humane. It's dehumanizing him. Regardless of what happened in this courtroom, regardless of the convictions, regardless of what anyone believes about this person, he is a human. He is a father, he is a son, and he has been a friend to many. The life sentence is mandatory, but to do consecutive sentences, I think, is inappropriate and is inhumane. Anytime there is a death, a murder, a loss of life, it is horrible, whether it's a loved one or a stranger. And the legislature has provided, regardless of our disagreement, that a life sentence without parole is mandatory. But that does not negate that he is a human being. And I don't think sentencing him to on and after time is appropriate. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. What he was convicted of were atrocious acts. We've heard from her family, we've heard from her friends. Their pain is unimaginable, and I'm not demeaning that, but I have the opportunity to speak for Brian today. And I'm asking the court to sentence him in line with the guidelines and with the purpose of sentencing. Punishment, justice, prevention of future crimes, consecutive sentences, that's excessive and it doesn't meet those needs. So I'd ask the court to adopt the defendant's sentencing recommendation.
I just want to put on the record that the defendant, in making its argument with regard to the inhumane aspect of any consecutive sentences, cited to a case in its brief, Donovan. Donovan does not apply to this case. As an initial matter, Donovan related to a larceny involving a single act that resulted in 7 different victims being victimized. The SJC, that was, I think, a 1985 case. the appellate courts in Massachusetts have long since distinguished Donovan, even in the case of larcenies, which is not the case that's before me, to recognize that even Donovan relates only to a single act case and not one with one purpose. As you could argue, there was one purpose here, but more than one discrete offense. So I'm not persuaded by the logic of Donovan, even if it applied to this case, and even if it was as broad-reaching as the defense suggests in its sentencing memo, which the court finds it is not. There is no task facing a judge that is more important or more difficult than crafting an appropriate sentence. The legislature mandates that the only appropriate sentence for the jury's verdict.
Judge Diane Frenier sentencing Brian Walshe for the murder of his wife, Anna Walshe Christinaka, alongside Paula Eben. Let's listen into the sentencing.
Appropriate and just, given your murderous acts and the life trauma that you've inflicted upon your own children. As to counts 2 and 3, I have wide discretion in sentencing. I want to state my rationale for your sentences on those 2 counts on the record now. I have considered various factors with regard to my sentence for counts 2 and counts 3, to which you pled guilty on November 18th, 2025. Specifically, I've considered the severity of the crimes, their nature and circumstances, and your role in those crimes, the need to deter others from committing comparable crimes, and your prior criminal record, namely your federal fraud case. As to the latter, your criminal history shows a long and well-documented history of deceitful and manipulative behavior. I've considered your character, or lack thereof, your behavior, and your background. With regard to the nature and circumstances of the offenses, as to indictment 002, in the approximately 4 hours of interviews spanning 4 days, you concocted a detailed, completely fabricated story of what happened to Anna Walshe on January 1st, 2023, in order to cover up your murder of her and disposal of her body. Your lies triggered a multi-day extensive missing persons investigation. A command center was set up in Cohasset and was manned by various law enforcement, to include the Cohasset Police Department and the Massachusetts State Police. And local and Massachusetts resources were deployed to Washington, D.C. to investigate at Anna's home. Because of your lies, thousands of hours of investigative resources were wasted and diverted from other deserving cases and investigations. As to the nature and circumstances of count 3, the improper disposal of Anna Walshe's body, the seriousness of your acts cannot be overstated. Your acts in dismembering your wife's body and disposing of her remains in multiple area dumpsters can only be described as barbaric and incomprehensible. You had no regard for the lifelong mental harm that your criminal acts inflicted on your then 2, 4, and 6-year-old sons, not only in taking their mother, but also, as is specific to this charge, in never being able to properly grieve that loss, to say goodbye to their mom. And I hear today the same is equally true of a sister who never was able to say a proper goodbye to her sister, a mother who never was able to say a proper goodbye to her daughter, and many friends who had the same loss. As to indictments 2 and 3, I have considered the sentencing guidelines, the aggravating factors. There are no mitigating factors in this case. And I also sought out and considered information from the Massachusetts Sentencing Commission, again, which I shared with the parties earlier this week, in particular sentencings in 2022 and 2023 of defendants who were convicted of murder and or voluntary manslaughter, along with a Chapter 268, Section 13B conviction. This is not a guideline case. Finally, as to the first-degree murder conviction, I have considered the loss of the life of an innocent, remarkable woman, Anna Walshe, and its devastating impact on her children, as relayed to me in the letter from DCF, her family, as relayed to me in her sister's victim impact statement today, friends in their victim impact statements in the community. In the trial testimony of Jem Mutlu and Alyssa Kirby, a little bit of Anna Walshe, her warm, powerful, and embracing spirit came to life in this historic courtroom. I have carefully listened to the moving victim impact statement, to the oral written sentencing arguments made by the Commonwealth and by Mr. Walshe. It's clear to me that Anna was a bright light in the lives of many people. She lifted people up. I am sure that nothing I say and no sentence I can impose, even a life sentence, will lessen the grief that Anna Walshe's family, her mother, sister, and 3 boys, extended like family, confidants, friends, and others have endured and will continue to endure. Although I consider the letter of Diana Walshe, I simply cannot reconcile the person Diana Walshe describes in her letter with the person who stands before me for sentence. Mr. Walshe, you can stand. Mr. Walshe, you will live with the guilt and burden of Anna Walshe's death for the rest of your life. As to count 1, the jury having convicted you of murder in the first degree, I sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As to indictment 2, lying to the police in connection with the investigation of a life felony, I sentence you to no less than 19 years, no more than 20 years, the statutory maximum, in prison to be served consecutive to the life sentence in 001. The legislature caps the maximum sentence for the improper disposal of a body at 3 years in state prison. As to indictment 003, the improper disposal of the body of your wife, Anna Walshe, I sentence you to no less than 2 years, 364 days, and no more than 3 years in state prison to run consecutive to the sentences in 001 and 002. I want to make one other notation with regard to the sentences that I'm giving today. Earlier in this case, I identified that there was an error in Mr. Walsh's III. That error persists to today. Specifically, so the record is clear, as I understand Mr. Walsh's prior federal sentence, he was sentenced to 37 months in federal prison. That sentence was to run concurrent with any state sentence that was given in this case. This morning, I asked probation to run his III again, and it is still incorrect. It is showing a 5-year probationary sentence. At my direction, the probation department in the last month, or perhaps a little bit longer, contacted the federal probation office in Boston to correct what I think is an obvious error in his III. It has not been corrected, and it stands still today as showing 5 years of probation as the sentence. To the extent that confuses anything in my sentencing, I want the record to reflect that, again, it's my understanding he was sentenced to 37 months in federal prison to run concurrent with this sentence that I'm now imposing today. Madam Clerk, you may impose the sentence.
Thank you, Your Honor.
We've been listening to Judge Diane Frenier inside the courtroom in Dedham, who has sentenced Brian Walshe on the 3 counts against him to life without the chance for parole for first-degree murder, as well as sentences, Chris, for the 2 lesser charges.
Correct, and these are going to be served consecutively, and you may wonder, well, how can you serve a sentence after death? Well, that's the whole point the Commonwealth was arguing. Chief Trial Counsel Greg Conner making the point. It's largely punitive and symbolic based on the horrific, barbaric nature of the crime he was convicted of. Incomprehensible is the way the judge described it.
She also pointed out that his murderous acts have inflicted life trauma on his 3 children, who are still 3 boys under the age of 10. Anna Walsh's sister gave a victim impact statement in which she talked about their mother's depression, the unfinished grief because this family was not able to have a proper funeral and say goodbye to Anna Walshe because of the disposal of her body. And the judge, in very strong wording, said that this was barbaric, incomprehensible, murderous acts, and therefore that's why these sentences have been laid out as they are.
We did bring you that victim impact statement from Alexandra live on CBS News Boston. Our streaming service is 24/7. It's free. You can always go there for live coverage of events like this. Of course, on WBZ, we'll be back at noon for full coverage.
A full wrap then, but of course we'll send you back to our news coverage now here on CBS News Boston. We want to continue with our breaking news. Brian Walshe has been sentenced to life in prison without the chance for parole, as well as sentences for the 2 lesser charges that he was charged with. I'm Paula Eben here with Chris Tanaka. We were just looking in live at the courtroom in Dedham, where Judge Diane Frenier sentenced him just a few moments ago.
Yeah, only one victim's impact statement in the courtroom itself by Anna Walsh's sister. You watched that live here on CBS News Boston. And then Chief Trial Counsel, the prosecutor in the case, Greg Conner, outlining in very graphic terms why he was recommending consecutive sentences to the judge, largely punitive. You can't serve time after you're dead, but symbolic in nature, that these 2 lesser charges, lying to investigators and illegal conveyance or movement of a body, should be sentenced and served, if you will, because of the nature of the crime, to which Judge Diane Frenier agreed.
Yep. Of course, we can't forget his federal sentence of 37 months, which the judge pointed out, which, of course, he asked for permission to leave home confinement when this murder took place. But the judge sentenced him to life with no chance for parole on first-degree murder, on count 2 lying to police, no less than 19 years, no more than 20. Of course, she said she consulted the Commonwealth's guidelines on these. And for that 3rd charge, illegal conveyance or disposal of a body, no less than 2 years, 364 days, just under the 3-year mark. She described his murderous acts, which imposed life trauma on their children, 3 boys under the age of 10. And Chris, you're right, in the graphic way that the prosecutor described what was going on in the days after January 1st, 2023.
Right. Yeah.
Led to this desire for an additional sentence.
During the course of this trial, and any trial really, prosecutors have to present their case to make an argument.
Yes.
It's an argument. However, once the verdict comes in and there's a conviction, now they present it as fact. And Greg Conner did that in a sobering way this morning.
He certainly did. Brian Walshe was stoic during all of the proceedings, but this was shocking to hear as he described what happened.
He just ping-ponged back and forth between the Google searches and what Walshe did on January 1st and then in the coming days. And in the most sobering terms, talked about the disposal, the way he used the word, the disposal of his wife's body.
And he described on January 2nd and January 3rd his wife's body being in the basement of their home while their children were present in the home, and Brian Walsh's mother coming to and fro, visiting the house, and which really drew a more stark picture of the mental state of this man now convicted of this coldly murdering the mother of his 3 children and then dismembering her body after her body had been there for days. Judge Diane Frenier certainly did not hold back. And in the victim impact statement, Anna Walsh's sister talked about her gratitude toward the Commonwealth and the office for being able to bring this case successfully to a conviction, but the fact that their family will have this unfinished grief, that her mother suffers from deep depression, holidays have been ruined for this family. You can imagine the crises they will have trying to discuss this with these children for the rest of their lives. It was really beyond sad.
100%. Yeah. It's a long road ahead for that family, but the foundation moving forward has been laid, and that's justice.
Sure.
That's what they said.
The judge said even though she consulted for state guidelines, these will be served. Concurrent, one right after the other, to send a message, of course, as every sentencing does, for further deterrence of crimes, that in a no-body case like this, anyone would understand that someone is not going to get away with murdering another human being and then just getting rid of their body.
And the defense actually had a chance to speak as well, and they were hoping that the 2 lesser sentences be served concurrent with the life sentence and not after. That's akin to moving your king on a chessboard when checkmate is imminent.
Yes.
You're just doing something for the exercise of it. And the judge said, no thank you.
And I think that the word that was used, of course, the defense attorney doing her job, doing her utmost for her client, said that it would be inhumane to have him sentenced to these consecutive sentences. And I think after what the prosecutor had laid out, it was very difficult for the judge or anyone in that courtroom to think of inhumane and not think of what had happened to Anna Walshe. Let's listen to a little bit of the victim impact statement from Anna Walshe's sister.
My name is Alexandra Dmitrievich, and I'm the sister of Anna Walshe. I am here today to represent myself and my mother. I want to share with the court how losing my sister in January 2023 has forever changed our lives and left us with an unbearable emptiness. Losing my sister Anna so unexpectedly has altered our world in ways we never imagined. Anna was not just my sister. She was someone I grew up with, someone who knew me in ways no one else ever will. I struggle with the grief that comes without warning, hoping every morning that this is all just a terrible dream. The most painful part of this loss is knowing her children must now grow up without their mother's hand to hold. They now face a lifetime of milestones, big and small, where her absence will be deeply and painfully felt. This tragedy has also devastated my mother. She has developed severe depression and chronic exhaustion. Every single day, she carries the weight of losing her daughter. Our entire family is still learning how to live with this emptiness. Holidays and birthdays are now silent reminders of her absence. Because of the circumstances of my sister's death, we were denied the opportunity to say a final goodbye and to observe our customs, adding a layer of profound, unfinished grief to our loss. Anna was a mother, a daughter, a sister, and a friend. Her life was unfairly taken. We miss her beyond words. While we recognize that no sentence can bring her back, we ask the court to consider the permanent, long-lasting impact this loss has had on our family, especially her children. We stand in agreement with the Commonwealth and their recommendations. Finally, I would like to extend our deepest gratitude to the investigators, the Commonwealth's office, and everyone who has worked tirelessly on this case. Your dedication to seeking justice for my sister has provided our family with a sense of support during our darkest hours. Your Honor, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share the full weight of this incomprehensible act. Anna will never be forgotten. We will carry her light and her memory with us forever. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perhaps the one silver lining to this really, really morose exercise was that. Alexandra vowing to remember the good times, to move forward with the family and salvage the lives of these young children and make the best of it.
Yeah, and you really see the point of a victim impact statement to bring to life the suffering of the family at large, a sister's love for her sister so cruelly taken away from her. And then the judge talked about how the witnesses, the friends of Anna Walshe who had testified during the trial, really kind of brought her spirit into the courtroom, brought her alive for the jury, and for people to realize, you know, what a an amazing young woman. This was young mother that was just taken, and it was very effective.
Penny Committ's been covering this trial for us, doing yeoman's work. She is there now, and we'll get her as soon as possible. If we can't get her here on the stream, you'll be sure to catch her, of course, on WBZ News at noon. I wanted to remark on one observation. When we get into these trials, we tend to focus on the present, and our periphery tends to shrink. We focus on everything right in front of us. But what the judge mentioned today really was kind of an oh yeah moment when she was talking about the second charge, which he pled guilty to, lying to investigators.
Yes.
She outlined the breadth of the manpower that was deployed locally, that was sent to Washington, D.C., the scope of the search, all done under the guise that Anna Walshe might be alive.
Right, it was a missing
and might
persons
be
case.
Missing.
Yeah.
And that he knew the whole time.
Yeah, he knew the whole time.
He knew the whole time.
And she said the thousands and thousands of hours, not to mention the financial commitment wasted.
Right. These
because
are
of his deceitful behavior.
Our first responders, our investigators, they're public servants, they're incredibly dedicated to their craft. They were deployed, they went out, they spent all that time.
Yeah, let's listen to the sentencing again in case you haven't heard it as of yet.
Mr. Walshe, you will live with the guilt and burden of Anna Walsh's death for the rest of your life. As to count 1, the jury having convicted you of murder in the first degree, I sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As to indictment 2, lying to the police in connection with the investigation of a life felony, I sentence you to no less than 19 years, no more than 20 years, the statutory maximum, in prison to be served consecutive to the life sentence in 001. The legislature caps the maximum sentence for the improper disposal of a body at 3 years in state prison. As to indictment 003, the improper disposal of the body of your wife, Anna Walshe, I sentence you to no less than 2 years, 364 days, and no more than 3 years in state prison to run consecutive to the sentences in 001 and 002. I want to make one other notation with regard to the sentences that I'm giving today. Earlier in this case, I identified that there was an error in Mr. Walsh's III. That error persists to today. Specifically, so the record is clear, as I understand Mr. Walsh's prior federal sentence, he was sentenced to 37 months in federal prison. That sentence was to run concurrent with any state sentence that was given in this case. This morning, I asked probation to run his III again, and it is still incorrect. It is showing a 5-year probationary sentence. At my direction, the probation department in the last month, or perhaps a little bit longer, contacted the federal probation office in Boston to correct what I think is an obvious error in his III. It has not been corrected, and it stands still today as showing 5 years of probation as the sentence. To the extent that confuses anything in my sentencing, I want the record to reflect that, again, it's my understanding he was sentenced to 37 months in federal prison to run concurrent with this sentence that I'm now imposing today. Madam Clerk, you may impose the sentence.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Walsh, a jury having returned a guilty verdict on charge 1, murder in the first degree, you were sentenced to the state prison for the term of your natural life.
Dealing with this for 3 years, was it satisfying to hear that sentence today?
Well, you know, I don't know if satisfying is the right word I'd use. You know, we're just our prayers and our love are with those children and Anna's family, and it was nice. I got some time to I got a moment to spend with Anna's family that came here today. It was nice to finally meet them and you know, pass along our wishes, our well wishes to them.
We only saw her for, you know, on the stand, and we tried to talk to her just now. Can you give us a sense of what this has been like for their family?
You know, clearly everybody heard what she said, and you know, it's you know, clearly been traumatic, and it's going to continue to impact them, you know, for their entire lives, as well as those children.
Is there some vindication for interviews? He's convicted of lying to your investigators. Your department launches this missing person investigation. I guess your thoughts today on getting some justice on that front as well.
The verdict, you know, the jury did a great job. They listened to all the evidence. They listened to the testimony, and it was, you know, they clearly came to the right decision. And we just, you know, want to thank them, the jurors, and also the judge, as well as the district attorney's office and all the investigators.
Gee, thanks so much.
Okay.
Thank you. Right there.
That was our WBZ reporter Penny Commit, who's gathering more sound, gathering more information from people involved in this case. And you see there one of the investigators, clearly she was talking about finally meeting the family of Anna Walshe after Brian Walshe stood relatively stoic as the sentence was read. Chris, I thought it was interesting. The judge pointed out that she looked into his character, behavior, and background in addition to the circumstances of this case. We have to remember that Brian Walshe was serving the federal sentence for his deceitful behavior in trying to sell Andy Warhol paintings.
Fake Warhols, yeah.
Before, and fake no less, before this even ensued. And, you know, it is interesting when we talk about these cases with the consecutive sentences she imposed. Not only is the court talking to
share anything you'd like. Anything at all you'd like to share. Anything you'd like to say on behalf of your son.
That is Diana Walshe. That is Brian Walshe's mother. And you saw our Penny Commit asking if she had anything to say after the sentencing. Clearly not. Demonstrating how difficult this is for all parties involved.
For both families. 100%. However, the judge pointed out the written statement that Diana Walshe had submitted to the court in defense of her son, clearly arguing on his behalf, she found completely ineffective.
Right. She could not compare the statement to the individual and the evidence presented in court.
Yeah. The point I was just making was about deterrence, and that the message from the court is not just to Brian Walshe, but to residents of Massachusetts at large, that you're not going to get away in a no-body case with murdering someone, dismembering them, moving their body. So these consecutive sentences, that is a larger message she's sending here.
Yeah, and look, the prosecution sent a message, too, that they can convict with no body and no witnesses.
And that now digital evidence is going to, it's just such a new avenue for all of these investigators. The Google searches, the surveillance video everywhere.
Timestamps.
Yeah, it's just a whole new ball game.
Yeah. There was one thing that the judge was talking about in the sentencing that we wanted to explore. She kept mentioning this triple I. So as it relates to Walshe being convicted on federal charges of trying to sell those fake Warhols, he was sentenced to 37 months. However, the judge was saying this triple I, that's the Interstate Identification Index, and basically that links the FBI centrally to states that participate and share information
Right.
back and forth with it, and there was probation in there. So she wanted to make sure that the probation was X'd out.
Right. She said it was
on the federal
incorrect.
charge. Correct. Yeah. Yeah, that he has 37 months in a federal penitentiary, and that there's no chance of arguing for probation based on that incorrect input in the III, that identification index.
Right. And
She's trying to close out any potential for a loophole there.
she was making sure all her I's were dotted and T's were crossed. Let's take a quick break. We will be back with more coverage. Brian Walshe has been sentenced to life in prison without the chance for parole and additional years as well. More after this.
Welcome back. Chris Tanaka alongside Paula Eben as we discuss the sentencing of Brian Walshe. As expected, life in prison without the possibility of parole for the first-degree murder charge, but also the two lesser charges which he pleaded guilty to before the start of the trial. Judge Diane Frenier sentencing him to the maximum, which is 19 years to 20 years for lying to investigators, and then 2 years and 364 days up to 3 years for the illegal conveyance or movement of a body.
Yeah, and she said the seriousness of those charges cannot be overstated.
Yeah.
And she wanted to make sure that it was very clear she was sending that message, that those sentences will be served consecutive upon a life sentence without the possibility of parole.
We are standing by, waiting to hear from the defense. Penny Commit has covered this trial for us. She's outside of the courthouse in Dedham, waiting to see if that materializes. She tried to get some comment from Diana Walshe, which is Brian Walshe's mother. Complete silence as she walked away. We heard some conciliatory, really comforting words from Cohasset Police Chief William Quigley earlier as well, talking about being able to console the family members of Anna Walshe in this moving forward. So there's Penny. There's the mic stand, as you can see, waiting to see if any of the defense team wants to say anything. And of course, if Penny's ready for us to see what she's been going through out there.
These are fluid situations, but let's see if Penny is set up and ready to go. Penny?
Paula, Chris, good morning. Very tense inside of the courthouse this morning. Certainly hearing from Anna Walshe's sister, just some quotes that she said. The most painful part of this loss is knowing that the children will grow up without a mother's hand to hold. She says that she wakes up every morning just hoping that this is all a dream. We tried speaking with her more outside of the courthouse. She did not have much to say. She just said that she loves her sister. That was her only comment. And she thanked the judge, the investigators, everyone that worked on this case to bring justice to her sister. Also, some victim impact statements we did not hear. The judge says that the 3 children submitted a written impact statement. She says those will likely be impounded, so we will probably not be able to hear those. Diana Walshe, Brian Walshe's mother, also writing a letter to the judge, and the judge saying something to the effect like, even after reading this letter, I still see someone totally different before me, and sentenced Brian Walshe to life in prison without the possibility of parole, along with approximately 22 additional years. And those will not run concurrently with that life sentence. Those will be consecutive. So let's say that Brian Walshe wins on an appeal. He would still likely have to serve that approximately 22 years. So very eerie inside of the courthouse, a very melancholic atmosphere. Brian Walshe, though, once again, not really showing a lot of emotion, walking out of the courthouse, walking out of the courtroom, like he always does. Not any more sad or didn't seem any more worried than he usually does, but very somber inside of the courtroom. And now we're waiting to hear from the defense.
Wrap up there. Quick question. You may not know the answer. Is there any expectation that we would hear once again from the Commonwealth, i.e. the prosecutors in the case?
It's a possibility. They have not come out of the courthouse yet. They spoke at length on Monday about this guilty verdict. They, of course, once again, thanking all of the investigators, saying how hard they worked on this, especially because, remember, Anna Walshe's body has never been found. So a huge hurdle for the prosecution there. They came out with the guilty verdict. And I asked them, would you consider this a win for the Norfolk County DA's office, especially after the Karen Reed trial? They say they do not measure these things in wins and losses. They just look for the right answer, and they believe this was the right answer. So we heard from them a lot on Monday. I would be shocked if we hear from them again, but they're still inside the courthouse, so anything is possible.
And Penny, I think, you were there in the courtroom. You said it was tense. When Alexandra, Anna's sister, was talking, of course, the point of a victim impact statement is to humanize the victim here. And we have always talked about, just as a matter of fact, her body has never been found, but she was really able to articulate. It was painful to hear her talking about their unfinished grief and their mother's depression. Talk a little bit about, what it was like in the courtroom as she was describing their family's pain surrounding that.
Certainly, this is a family that lives in Serbia, so they've been watching this from afar. She said this has been exhausting for her mother, that her mother now has severe depression. She was giving this statement on behalf of both her and her mother. And she talked a lot about the inability to grieve because Anna Walsh's body has never been found. They have certain cultural traditions they have not been able to honor. They have not been able to have a proper funeral like they hoped. They also spoke about the kids not getting the chance to properly start the grieving process. No funeral, no formal goodbye. She really emphasized how hard this has been on her and her family. Not only not being able to say goodbye to Anna, but then, watching this trial and how gruesome some of the details have been. She said her mother has just experienced depression, exhaustion, and talked a little bit about how great Anna was. They said she was a light and she will certainly be missed.
It's a great point that you bring up, and added to the list of things they don't have is a simple death certificate, which the prosecutor, Connor, said he's trying to get from the state now.
Wow. Which is probably plays a significant legal role
right.
in various issues surrounding those children, those 3 boys under the age of 10. And the judge, Penny, also pointing out that in addition, she said, to his murderous acts, he imposed life trauma onto his own children, which you could tell really bothered the judge. She certainly considered it in the sentencing.
Yeah. Certainly, the defense asked for him to not serve these other charges, sentences consecutively. They wanted them all, in one, so they would all be served along with his life sentence. So again, if he were to win an appeal, maybe he would, those wouldn't follow the life sentence. They would run consecutively. But the judge was pretty stern, sending a message saying that not only has he traumatized his children, but also the entire community. She spoke a little bit about the effort by the Cohasset Police Department, the Massachusetts State Police, to find Anna Walshe after he lied about her whereabouts. She was saying that they went down to Washington, D.C. They set up a command center, and that was effort that could have been given to other cases, other investigations that instead were tied up because of Brian Walsh's inability to tell the truth. So the judge really coming down hard, saying she does not think this is cruel and unusual punishment, and again, saying this traumatized his family, Anna's family, and the entire community.
Prosecutor also, Penny, really detailing the gruesome details and truth of the fact that after killing her, we don't know how, that Anna Walsh's body was in the basement of their home for at least 24 hours, perhaps 2 days, while those 3 children were in the house, and that his mother had come to visit, had come and gone, clearly indicating he deceived her as well.
Sure.
And whatever kind of story he was telling his mother. And I think it was just, once the conviction happened, as Chris pointed out, and it's a fact, he's a convicted murderer, so chilling to hear the prosecutor describe all of that activity going on for a couple of days.
Yeah, certainly. When we talk about premeditation, so first-degree murder, they talk a lot about a period of reflection, like you still decided to commit this act despite a period of reflection. But here the prosecution is talking about that period of reflection when it comes to the disposal of a body. And he brought up, as you mentioned, the way that the searches kind of line up. It seems that Anna Walsh's body was in the basement for 24 hours at least, because 24 hours later, he was still searching. Is a hacksaw the best tool for dismembering a body? So the prosecution arguing he not only had this period of reflection when he chose to murder his wife, he also had this period of reflection when it came to the disposal of her body. And maybe he could have decided in that moment, I'm going to at least give my children a proper funeral, do this for Anna's family, but he did not. And as you mentioned, the prosecution says that Brian Walsh's mother came by during that time. The children were home with the babysitter. It's chilling to think what he was telling to his children, to his mother, to that babysitter during that window.
Yeah. And of course, Penny, as you wait for the defense to come out and have some words, I think the only outstanding question in all of this is they are guaranteed a right to an appeal on a murder one conviction in the Commonwealth. Will they choose to waive that right and accept the punishment, given how relatively quickly our legal analyst Jennifer Roman said the verdict came back, or will they pursue that appeal? Where they could go with it, I don't know, right? Being a layperson, given how black and white this case seems.
But here's the issue, right, Penny? In a no-body case, no autopsy, no evidence in that regard, perhaps that is that one little window,
one little sieve,
of
that'll
hope,
be interesting,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, there's no way to know. A first-degree murder conviction is going to result in automatic appeal. So they can waive the right. I would assume they would not, especially as you mentioned, there is no body. But regardless, these appeals are very rarely successful. But if they do choose to go that route, the defense attorneys here still have a lot of work to do. And in that case, I doubt we would hear from them outside of the courthouse because they're probably choosing their words very carefully. And they did not speak with us on Monday, which could also signal to us that maybe they are considering that potential appeal.
DC's Penny Commit, you have done a fantastic job covering the Brian Walshe trial. You're there live outside the Dedham District Court. We know you'll be waiting to see who emerges from the courtroom. We'll let you get back to gathering that information. Thank you so much.
Yep. And we're going to take a quick break here on CBS News Boston. Back after this. All right, Chief Trial Counsel Greg Conner, we just heard from him. Now let's listen in for more.
DVA. The last name is DIMITRIJEVA. I.C. First name's Alexandra.
Yeah, can you show us as well so we can just take a...
Yeah, we'll take the video of that.
I don't know if you can read my writing.
Alexander Dmitrovic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And just to be clear, that is
Yes.
not Prosecutor Connor. Someone else. Penny is down there outside of the courthouse just gathering
Sure.
reaction
I
from
believe that gentleman was explaining that Anna Walsh's sister, Alexandra, is
Surname.
Alexandra Dmitrovic.
Yeah.
She is from Serbia and gave a very emotional victim impact statement this morning. Welcome back, everybody. Paula Eben here with Chris Tanaka. Judge Diane Frenier did not spare her words when she sentenced Brian Walshe to, of course, the sentence that he would be given, life with no chance for parole, but also consecutive sentences on the other charges.
Yeah, absolutely. You would think this would be a largely procedural day, but it was intense. It was emotional, beginning with Anna Walsh's sister, Alexandra, delivering a really sobering victim impact statement.
Here it is.
My name is Alexandra Dmitrievich, and I'm the sister of Anna Walshe. I am here today to represent myself and my mother. I want to share with the court how losing my sister in January 2023 has forever changed our lives and left us with an unbearable emptiness. Losing my sister Anna so unexpectedly has altered our world in ways we never imagined. Anna was not just my sister. She was someone I grew up with, someone who knew me in ways no one else ever will. I struggle with the grief that comes without warning, hoping every morning that this is all just a terrible dream. The most painful part of this loss is knowing her children must now grow up without their mother's hand to hold. They now face a lifetime of milestones, big and small, where her absence will be deeply and painfully felt. This tragedy has also devastated my mother. She has developed severe depression and chronic exhaustion. Every single day, she carries the weight of losing her daughter. Our entire family is still learning how to live with this emptiness. Holidays and birthdays are now silent reminders of her absence. Because of the circumstances of my sister's death, we were denied the opportunity to say a final goodbye and to observe our customs, adding a layer of profound, unfinished grief to our loss. Anna was a mother, a daughter, a sister, and a friend. Her life was unfairly taken. We miss her beyond words. While we recognize that no sentence can bring her back, we ask the court to consider the permanent, long-lasting impact this loss has had on our family, especially her children. We stand in agreement with the Commonwealth and their recommendations. Finally, I would like to extend our deepest gratitude to the investigators, the Commonwealth's office, and everyone who has worked tirelessly on this case. Your dedication to seeking justice for my sister has provided our family with a sense of support during our darkest hours. Your Honor, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to share the full weight of this incomprehensible act. Anna will never be forgotten. We will carry her light and her memory with us forever. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was Alexandra, really emotional, but not the only impactful words that were spoken in the courtroom today. The judge didn't hold any punches.
Yeah, when Judge Diane Frenier brought her sentence forward and described the fact that she had wide discretion, it was thorough and it was serious. Here it is.
Mr. Walshe, you will live with the guilt and burden of Anna Walshe's death for the rest of your life. As to count 1, the jury having convicted you of murder in the first degree, I sentence you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As to indictment 2, lying to the police in connection with the investigation of a life felony, I sentence you to no less than 19 years, no more than 20 years, the statutory maximum, in prison to be served consecutive to the life sentence in 001. The legislature caps the maximum sentence for the improper disposal of a body at 3 years in state prison. As to indictment 003, the improper disposal of the body of your wife, Anna Walshe, I sentence you to no less than 2 years, 364 days, and no more than 3 years in state prison to run consecutive to the sentences in 001 and 002. I want to make one other notation with regard to the sentences that I'm giving today. Earlier in this case, I identified that there was an error in Mr. Walsh's III. That error persists to today. Specifically, so the record is clear, as I understand Mr. Walsh's prior federal sentence, he was sentenced to 37 months in federal prison. That sentence was to run concurrent with any state sentence that was given in this case. This morning, I asked probation to run his III again, and it is still incorrect. It is showing a 5-year probationary sentence. At my direction, the probation department in the last month, or perhaps a little bit longer, contacted the federal probation office in Boston to correct what I think is an obvious error in his III. It has not been corrected, and it stands still today as showing 5 years of probation as the sentence. To the extent that confuses anything in my sentencing, I want the record to reflect that, again, it's my understanding he was sentenced to 37 months in federal prison to run concurrent with this sentence that I'm now imposing today. Madam Clerk, you may impose the sentence.
Thank you, Your Honor.
The judge called his behavior barbaric and incomprehensible. He said the seriousness cannot be overstated.
Yep, and consecutive sentences, not concurrent, i.e. after the life sentence for murder, he will then at least symbolically serve more than 20 years on the 2 lesser counts.
And the judge certainly said she considered his character, behavior, and background in this case because, of course, he had the federal sentence on his other case of trying to sell fake Andy Warhol paintings, deceit in this case. And she did not mince her words at all.
Yeah. Justice for the victim's family, little consolation in that. And of course, now there's finality to this case, except for the appeal that Walshe has the right to. Whether or not he waives that, wait to be seen. Penny Committ's been at the courthouse covering it all. She's expected to speak with the defense if they so choose, and we'll certainly be asking that, of course. We'll have all the information on WBZ.com and WBZ News.
Stay here with us on CBS News Boston. Welcome back, everybody. Paula Eben here with Chris Tanaka. Judge Diane Frenier did not spare her words when she sentenced Brian Walshe to, of course, the sentence that he would be given, life with no chance for parole, but also consecutive sentences on the other charges.
Yeah, absolutely. You would think this would be a largely procedural day, but it was intense. It was emotional. Beginning with Anna Walshe's sister, Alexandra, delivering a really sobering victim impact statement.
Here it is.
My name is Alexandra Dmitrievich.